Hello, back again on the Top Recap channel. This time I will tell a movie's entitled Champion. Let's get straight into the storyline. A chaotic fight breaks out in a Los Angeles nightclub. Jin-ki, a man from South Korea, is attacked by a group of men. Mark, a South Korean security guard, steps in and stops the assault.
I'll kick you out if you keep causing trouble, remember? I ain't gonna cover your ass no more, man.
This night is only the beginning for a man who will soon be known as Champion. Jin-ki and Mark share a long history. Jin-ki knows Mark was once a world-ranked arm wrestling champion. Hoping to return home, Jin-ki asks Mark to join an underground arm wrestling tournament held at the club. Mark agrees and begins training with him.
Hey Joe, I'm here.
I thought you lost all your money earlier.
They work through past conflicts while preparing for the fight. Mark stays calm during the tournament and defeats the defending champion in an upset win.
Come on, Mark, come on!
Ready, go!
The prize money secures Jin-ki's travel plans. The defeated champion lashes out and attacks Jin-ki. Mark protects his friend and fights off the attackers. But the brawl costs him his job at the nightclub.
Get the hell out of my club.
Mark takes a mall security job, but feels restless. After a call from Jin-ki, he decides to return to South Korea. Jin-ki picks him up in a sports car and shows him popular tourist spots.
둘, 셋.
During the trip, Jin-ki brings Mark to a nightclub. Mark cannot relax and ends up helping staff control the crowd. Later, Jin-ki takes him to a hotel and gives him the address of his mother's house, which Mark has not seen in decades. At a nearby mall, a loan shark named Jay collects debts from clothing merchants. Jin-ki offers Jay a deal to sponsor Mark in the National Arm Wrestling Tournament and place bets on him through an online gambling site.
거기 알렉스라는 놈이 세계 랭킹 10위까지 간 놈인데 우리 마크가 한 번에 이겨버렸다니까요.
Jay sees profit and agrees to consider the plan.
그 새끼 지금 어디 있다고?
Mark visits his mother's address but finds two children, Ji-ho and Taeyong, living there with their mother, Sujin, a merchant who owes money to Jay. Mark returns to the house later and meets the children again, but learns nothing new about his mother. He follows Sujin to the mall, but gains no answers. Eventually, Mark meets Jay, who introduces him to Jin, a wealthy and influential man.
Go!
Impressed after watching Mark compete in an amateur fight, Jin agrees to fund him for the national tournament. With the sponsorship secured, Jin-ki takes Mark to a Korean restaurant to celebrate. Mark hesitates at first, used to American food, but after one bite, he keeps eating until he finishes a dozen bowls of the same dish. They return to their hotel, where each room has a massage chair. Mark resists trying it, but soon enjoys it so much he falls asleep. Despite the indulgence, Jay doubts Mark's skill and calls Combo, the top arm wrestling athlete in South Korea, to test him.
봐달라고 잘하는 건지.
Combo visits the nightclub and watches Mark compete. He quickly sees that Mark is on another level and could become the best arm wrestler in the country.
이거 봐, 내가 보는 눈이 있었어.
Sujin, curious about Mark, quietly attends the match. Jay notices her and argues with her, a scene Mark overhears. Jay tries to create drama by proposing a match between Mark and Combo, but both refuse. Mark's calm refusal angers Jay. Jin-ki worries that Mark's independence means he will no longer follow his lead. He suspects Mark's attitude is linked to Sujin. Hoping to motivate Mark, Jin-ki visits Sujin at her store.
아니 됐고 진짜 우리 마크하고 무슨
Jay and his men arrive and confront him.
아 이러시지 마시고요.
그 입양아 개새끼 어딨어?
Mark steps in, defeating Jay's men with ease. Before Mark can finish the fight, the police arrive and detain both men for questioning. Because Mark lacks South Korean citizenship, the police hesitate to release him. Gene Key claims Mark is a professional arm wrestler in town for a competition. To verify the story, the police challenge Mark to a quick game, which he wins without effort. As the situation calms, Sujin arrives with Jiho and Taeyong. She reveals she is Mark's younger sister, born to the same mother with a different father. She shows a childhood photo of their mother and explains that their mother died a year earlier. The revelation brings Mark and Sujin closer and helps Mark accept his past. After Jae ends the sponsorship, Mark and Gene Key lose their lodging and move into Sujin's house, which legally belongs to Mark. At first, the new siblings feel awkward, but Mark's presence soon changes the atmosphere. He scares away delinquent students who used to loiter outside and intimidates the debt collectors who once bullied Sujin. When one collector who knows Mark refuses to fight, a newcomer challenges him and Mark defeats him quickly.
애들밖에 없으니까 가라고.
The next day, both collectors stay away after seeing Mark step outside, but Jae refuses to let Mark walk away. Determined to keep control, he searches for a new fighter and signs Jim Kwong, an ex-convict known for doping and injuring opponents.
있는 게 뭔지 아냐? 그 새끼는 짝을 내는 게 버릇이란 거지. 에?
Mark discusses the chance of another match with Gene Key. Jiho and Taeyong urge him to compete. Gene Key wants to raise Mark's reputation and arranges a public match with Combo, the top arm wrestler in South Korea. Reporters gather for the event. The match is intense. Mark struggles at first, but overpowers Combo and wins. Family celebrates. During dinner, two bald students of Combo arrive and try to start trouble. Combo stops them and apologizes. Mark forgives them, and a friendship begins between the two athletes. That evening, Mark and Sujin talk about their mother. Sujin admits their mother loved Mark deeply and spoke of him on her deathbed.
엄마 보고 싶다.
Gene Key's plan to attract sponsors works in part as the televised match gains attention, but no sponsors come forward. One morning, Mark drops Jiho and Taeyong at school. A boy mocks him as a gorilla and the boy's mother joins in, claiming Mark will never be a champion. Jiho and Taeyong defend their uncle and tell everyone he is the best arm wrestler in the country.
아니에요. 우리 삼촌 진짜 챔피언 될 거예요.
Inspired, they ask Mark to promise he will win the upcoming championship. That night, Gene Key invites Mark to meet his father, who is struggling with heavy debt. Gene Key explains that a championship would help pay those debts and stabilize his family. Gene Key later learns Jae now manages GM Kwong and no longer needs Mark. Jae boasts that GM Kwong will crush Mark in the next match.
너무 말이
자꾸 이러시면 우리 마크가 진짜 이길 겁니다.
After training, Mark heads home and meets a crying boy. While comforting him, Mark accidentally damages a bus facility. At home, he sees Taeyong typing with skill and learns his grandmother taught him. This prompts Mark to check his phone for old messages. He finds one from his mother explaining who Sujin and her children are. The message shocks Mark. He learns Sujin is not his biological sister. She is a widow with 2 children whom his mother took in after her husband died. His mother raised them as family to avoid loneliness. Mark keeps the revelation to himself as he accompanies Sujin to their mother's grave. On the way, they have a brief scuffle with a rider, but he stays by her side.
죄송합니다.
At the grave, he breaks down and asks for the truth. Sujin apologizes, saying she never found the right time to tell him.
아니야. 일부러 그런 거 아니야. 오늘 여기서 다 말하려고 했어.
Shaken by her confession, Mark feels betrayed and walks away from Sujin and Gene Key. Gene Key follows, trying to stop him. They argue, and Mark accuses Gene Key of using him for money. Despite the anger, Mark admits Gene Key has become like a brother and agrees to stay. Mark spends time alone and reflects. He realizes that even without blood ties, Gene Key, Sujin, Jiho, and Taeyong are his family. Determined to make them proud, he starts training hard for the national arm wrestling competition. He even strengthens his right hand by pulling a used car. The day of the competition arrives. Mark meets Jin Ki and Combo at the venue along with their students. Jae shows up with GM Kwang, who is ready to cheat to win. The crowd includes the sports minister, MMA fighters, and famous idols. Jiho and Taeyong also appear after seeing Mark on television and come to cheer for him. The elimination round begins. Athletes display strength and discipline, but GM Kwang tries to injure his opponents. Jimin worries about Mark's chances and asks Jae to interfere. Backstage, Jae offers Jin Ki a large sum of money to convince Mark to withdraw. GM Kwang continues to hurt competitors, including one of Combo's students. Jin Ki brings the cash to Mark and explains it could clear his father's and Sujin's debts. Mark refuses. He says he will not quit and wants to prove himself. He tells Jin Ki to return the money and stays focused on the match. Sujin learns that her children went to watch the competition and rushes to the venue, leaving her store with a friend. Jiho and Taeyong meet Jin Ki and repeat Mark's promise to become a champion. Their words move Jin Ki. He returns Jae's money and chooses to support Mark fully. Mark reaches the semifinals and faces Combo again. Combo has trained hard, but Mark's hand strength from pulling cars gives him the edge. He defeats Combo and advances with confidence. As the round concludes, Jimin warns Jae to act fast since GM Kwang's loss would bring heavy financial trouble and leave Jae to take the blame. Mark looks for Jin Ki after his match, but cannot find him. He searches backstage and discovers Jae and his men have beaten Jin Ki.
잘 생각해. 뭐가 효과적인지.
Furious, Mark fights them off, helps Jin Ki up, and tells him he was right to reject Jae's money. The final match begins. Mark faces GM Kwang, a larger fighter with a tattooed hand. GM Kwang tries to intimidate Mark and nearly breaks his thumb. The referee ties their hands to keep the match under control. The battle is grueling. GM Kwang's use of performance drugs gives him an edge, and Mark struggles to keep pace. He remembers his promise to Jiho and Taeyong and refuses to give in. Jin Ki, Sujin, Jiho, Taeyong, the police, and Jin Ki's father shout encouragement. Their support drives Mark to push past his limits. He rallies, overpowers GM Kwang, and wins the national title. Mark becomes the first champion of the National Cup. Jae, who bet heavily with Jimin, suffers a major loss. During the trophy ceremony, Mark grows emotional as he thinks of his mother.
어머니, 보고 싶습니다.
The story closes with Mark representing South Korea in the World Cup with Jin Ki proudly at his side.